Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show.
I just want to talk about Ghostbusters. Did you see it?
No, I was too busy. I was too busy doing fun things like going to Disneyland.
Oh.
I say that as if Ghostbusters isn't fun. I actually do want to see it. I don't care what all the cynics say. I'm not a big Ghostbusters person anyway, so for me, it's just another opportunity to, exploit a decent series, but nothing special.
All of the screens in my local movie theater, have I told you this?
No.
all of them in my local megaplex have gone from crappy seats to the point where I really don't want to be in this theater at all. So I drive 20 minutes to the next theater because it just has better seats. And they have replaced it with the electronic recliners. And every screen, even the smallest crappy screen, has the electric recliners with reserved seating. The whole Metroplex is now gone this way, which makes it a much more delightful experience. And it's like
a Korean movie theater.
Kinda, except for nobody pets you. It's going to seem way out of context for people who haven't listened to every episode of this show. Trust me, it's in there. It's buried in the archives, the story. I'm going to let you find it.
Oh, dear.
Okay, so let me tell you, I went to see Ghostbusters, and I thought you were going to be all over it because I was the one who was... I was the guy. I was the cynic. I said it didn't need to be remade. Remember?
I would have been if I didn't have...
Disneyland, I know.
Bigger plans.
Wah. Oh, my life is hard. But that's why I wanted to talk about it, because there are so many stupid trolls, and let me tell you, I'm just going to say this. I had problems with Ghostbusters. None of those problems involved the cast or Paul Feig's interpretation of it, generally.
Okay.
I actually had a good time. And I'm telling you, the movie passed the 6 laugh test in the first 5 minutes. Like, the opening sequence, the first 5 minutes, Zach Woods, you may know Zach Woods from Silicon Valley. He plays Jared on Silicon Valley, and he's fantastic. He plays the tour guide in this mansion in New York, and it is the mansion that is haunted, and he's telling the story of it. And his role, I wanted him to be in the whole thing, and I want him also to be in every movie that I see from now on. I loved seeing him on screen. He's perfect for this role. He's really great. Anyway, he's not in it very long, and then it goes into, we meet the cast of the ladies, and I'll tell you, I'm going to spoil it, but not so much for you. I'm just going to tell you my favorite Ghostbuster. Would you like to hear?
Melissa McCarthy?
Nope.
I don't know.
Ha!
Doesn't matter if it's not Melissa.
It's Kate McKinnon.
I've heard good things.
Oh my gosh, she was hysterical. She was awesome. And of the 4, she was the only one that didn't feel somehow like the material was restraining them. Kristen Wiig was great. She's always great. Melissa McCarthy, I wanted more Melissa McCarthy. I wanted Spies Melissa McCarthy. I wanted, and I didn't get it. She was like, she was wonderful. She was fantastic and restrained. And I felt like I needed a little bit less restraint from her. Kate McKinnon was not. She was great. She was hysterical. Leslie Jones was terrific. And if you do see it, I saw it IMAX 3D. And they made some really clever choices, just trick of the eye choices with how they used the breaking out of the letterbox tricks for this movie. It was really fun. So, but it's a blink if you'll miss it kind of a thing. So be ready.
I see.
And I actually don't know if they did that on any of the other 3D versions. So I'm curious. If you don't see IMAX, just, let me know if you see anything clever.
Okay.
That's
I
it.
will.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I will see it at some point.
Totally worth it.
And hopefully take the kids.
Yeah, I've actually decided. I've made the decision to take my kids. We're going to see it actually twice. This is a twice movie for me. Saw it with once, going to see it with the kids.
Nice.
10 and 14. They're going to be good for it. I skipped the first item on our rundown here on principle, but I'm going to let you regroup if you want.
So I'm guessing by that statement that you haven't joined the millions of people who have tried Pokemon Go.
I have not. I have not. And there's 2 reasons. One, I have an addictive personality.
Uh-huh.
And I believe that may be a risk. I may be a risk of accident.
That's precisely why I shouldn't be allowed to play it.
No, you should not be allowed to play it. You absolutely should not. The other is, that feeling like when everybody else discovers something and you just don't do it for a little while, and then everybody else tells you, oh, you should totally do this. Then you're like, I don't really want to.
Is that where you are?
That's where I am. It's like, I get it. I get it now. I missed the boat. I also played a lot of Ingress, which was Niantic's first AR game, which is just like Pokemon, but a different skin. And so I played a lot of that when it first came out, and so I feel like I got it.
You already did that.
I don't want to say it like that. That makes me sound like a jerk. I'm not a jerk.
I've already done it. I'm so far ahead of you.
I just can't.
You can say it. Just say it. I know that's what you want to say.
I don't need to say it. I don't need to say it. You just said
because
it.
I said it for you.
Tell me how many. What level are you? Are you level 5 yet? Are you competing in the gym?
In the gyms, I am. I am level 7.
Level 7.
So yeah.
You go.
I think there's just it's provided a lot of interesting stories. Period. And that's almost the reason that I wanted to see what it was like, because I'm like, what is this game that people are playing that is like making them walk off cliffs, getting mugged in the middle of the night?
Wow, getting shot at? This is ridiculous.
Oh, it is just crazy. It really is.
Yeah.
But it's fun. I mean, it's nothing taxing. It's an easy thing to do with the kids. And
well, I was going to ask you, because you've been doing geocaching. Isn't this very similar?
It is. And I kind of think that they prefer this to geocaching, even though geocaching, you actually get like real little treasures and stuff.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I'm trying to find things that kind of are fun. And, I think that the Pokemon Go, while, they are staring at a screen while they walk around, at least it's getting them out of the house to go do things.
More power to you, Andy.
I just don't like doing it when it's 110 outside.
No, when you do it, no kidding. When you do it, do both kids each have their own device along with you, or are you? How does that work?
Well, my daughter's kind of stepped away from it because she's kind of decided that her new thing is to learn to juggle. So that's what she does now, is watch juggling videos on YouTube. So my son and we go do the Pokemon Go while she learns to juggle.
Sorry, Dad. I need to flick chart the activities we do together. And right. Pokemon Go just lost.
Oh, too funny.
To juggling videos on YouTube. That's kind of sad.
Oh, it's funny. She's learning though. It really works. Well, I can put that on the box. It really works. It really works.
Andy, did you see anything while you were at your big fancy trip at Disney? You didn't say. Obviously, you would have seen Ghostbusters. You have anything else to report?
No. I mean, I did take the kids to see The Secret Life of Pets. I thought it was fun. I think I ended up enjoying it a little more than you did. It wasn't life-changing. In fact, it was rather forgettable, although it still had some fun characters, and the kids loved it, and the crowd that I was with. I mean, I do think that sometimes watching a movie with the right crowd can really help your reaction to it, because, I mean, this crowd was nuts about it. They just loved everything about it. Everybody burst into applause at the end. I was like, wow, what movie did I just
Well, yeah, to your point, I saw, we didn't talk about this last week, but I guess it's true because I just saw it this week, was Central Intelligence. And that was, I totally, I buy that I wanted to laugh at that movie so hard. I needed the good laugh, and I was so bored until really the very last 12 minutes of the movie. I just didn't laugh. It was not like bad, but it was really meh. And again, to the point about Melissa McCarthy being restrained by the material in Ghostbusters, Kevin Hart was absolutely restrained by the material in this movie. He's just a funnier guy than this, and I wanted that Kevin Hart, not the one I got. So I totally agree with you. I think there's really there's definitely a sense I am deeply afflicted by whatever that thing is that we're talking about. Shall we tell the people where we're from?
Yes, where are we from?
This is The Next Reel, everybody. I'm Pete Wright, and that there is Andy Nelson. Maybe, if he's still here.
Sorry, I gotta go run out and do some more Pokemon.
There's a Pokemon right in my office.
There's a Pikachu right down the hall. Hold on. Hi.
Hey, and we spoil movies. Tonight on the show, the second in our Epic Disease series with George Romero's third. Jeez, really?
Yes.
We've done 3 already?
Did you already forget about the first glorious one?
I did.
Charlton
that was a terrible movie. That's right. This is the third in our Epic Disease series with George Romero's 1973 film, The Crazies. Before we get into that, you should learn more about us at thenextreel.com. Subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast app or join us on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Next Reel. And if you've ever had an assumption about your own tastes, then repeatedly had that assumption tested by a series of questionable films right in a row, then you should take a number and get in line right behind me for The Next Reel's Instagram #PonyPrize, #GuessTheMovieChallenge.
And with that, let's head out to the pasture to see if Games Master Steven Smart can take a break from his mad dance with the sheep and tell us who won this week.
Hey guys, this week's movie was Bad Company from 1972, directed by Robert Benton and starring Jeff Bridges. Congrats to @TheOtherScotty who guessed it on Image 5. You are entered once again into the Pony Prize hat. As always, a new challenge starts Monday. So thanks guys, and see you later.
And we've got some follow-up from the good Ben Lott, friend of the show, with The Blot Spot, this time on the film we did just last week, The Andromeda Strain.
All of Crichton's books have a lot of theoretical science mumbo-jumbo, which takes up a large section of the book. Written down, this stuff can be fascinating, but when you translate to film, that's the stuff you should fast forward through. A good example of doing it right can be found in Jurassic Park, which saves us the scientific explanation of how the dinosaurs were manufactured and sums it all up in a cute cartoon. Strangely, the makers of the Andromeda Strain decide that the slow process of how they clean up and how they study the strain was the important part of Crichton's book. Then they completely dropped the ball when it came to the more exciting parts. I do enjoy this kind of puzzle-solving film, and I like watching how they piece things together, but I'll agree that it was not a great movie. Your rank 235, my rank 149.
Still, that's a split. 149.
Yeah,
Feels like
he's
that's a better opinion.
That's about about 80 more than us. Yeah,
that's right. It's an 80. It's a net 80.
Something like that.
Got to be a way we can quantify this.
Is there?
Until we figure that out, Andy, let's do trailers. You know what? I know we've talked about this movie. I know that we have, but I'm going to tell you the truth. The full trailer came out about 13 hours ago as we record this for The Magnificent Seven, and screw it. I like it a lot. I want to watch it a bunch. I can't wait for this movie to come out, and so I wanted to talk about it again.
Well, okay.
What do you think about them apples?
You do what you want to do over there, buddy.
I'm just saying. This is Denzel. Looks great. There's a lot of good Chris Pratt comedy. There is some just fine shooting. And I think that Antoine Fuqua is going to give us one hell of a film, Andrew.
I like that they give us a little more definition about each of the seven, even if we don't get to explore many of them.
They do, and they put the little titles up there on the thing. The assassin, the sharpshooter.
The bounty hunter, the gambler.
That's right. I loved it. I thought it was really, really fun. It's a nice long trailer, and we see a lot of the big scape of the West, with many, many, many tens upon tens upon tens of horses running across the skyline of the West. It is beautiful. It is dynamic. I actually really enjoy the song that they put with it. I don't remember what it is. The lyrics are really simplistic. I remember thinking, this is a terrible lyricist, but I really was liking the song. It just felt like a nice mashup between kind of the Wild West and that sort of urban bent that Antoine Fuqua is so good at. So there you go. Go watch this trailer a bunch of times, even more than the teaser we did.
I'm really curious I want to see this film now and really try to get it, because it's listed as being shot in Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
But it sure looks like the Old West to me.
Yeah, they did a heck of a good job.
I'm wondering if
Rouge.
all the stage work was done down in Louisiana, and all the exteriors might have been shot over in New Mexico or something.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make sense that all that was Baton Rouge too.
I don't know,
but I am excited about it. I don't know. I had a little more pause when I watched it this time, going, well, okay. It definitely feels more Hollywood, like they're giving each man a real role this time. But it still looks fun.
What could you possibly have a problem with that?
I don't know. I don't know what my problem is with it, but it seemed a little, I don't know.
Oh, I didn't like the movie because each character didn't have its own identity. It wasn't well enough developed. Oh, now they're too developed. I don't even know how to read you anymore.
I don't either. I'm my own mystery.
Man, you're the mysterious eighth member of the Magnificent Seven.
Oh, dear.
Get it. Anyway, this one's coming September 23rd to the USA. It's one of those big slam bang global launches. Starts on the 22nd in Argentina and wraps up the 29th in Italy. And then we get Thailand and Japan in October and January of 2017, respectively.
And that's actually the final film in our Seven Samurai Family series that we're going to be doing starting at the beginning of September and running through the month.
I don't even know if I don't even know. They'll all fail you somehow. What's your trailer, Andy?
Oh man, I'm kind of my curiosity was piqued with my trailer. It is for surprise of surprises, Warren Beatty's new film. And, he's a guy who has made movies, but then he kind of took a break for a while and kind of was in semi-retirement. But he comes back with Rules Don't Apply, which is his new kind of take on Howard Hughes and kind of the life surrounding him when he builds his big airplane. I don't know. I'm curious because it's kind of like, it's kind of following Howard Hughes, but then you also have the story is kind of like his assistant and this guy who's kind of working with him and everything and following him, played by our new Han Solo, Alden Ehrenreich, playing Frank Forbes, his assistant, and of course, the aspiring actress that Howard Hughes starts eyeing, Lily Collins, playing Marla Mabry.
Accidentally eyeing.
Is he?
Well, he wanted the two M's. He wanted
That's
Marilyn
right.
Monroe.
That's right. There's something about the story. Because the trailer started, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. He's kind of pulling Aviator and following up with Martin Scorsese's Aviator, doing a different take on Howard Hughes. And I was a little concerned about it at first. And then I saw that, it's not just about Howard Hughes. It's not just focusing on his insanity and kind of just all the problems that he had mentally, everything with his Spruce Goose. This one was getting into a lot of other elements, and it actually looks a lot lighter. It's billed as a comedy, drama, romance, and primarily between Lily Collins and Alden Ehrenreich. And it's kind of their story surrounded by this crazy world that Howard Hughes has them both in. But, I don't know. I liked the look of it. I thought it looked really interesting, and I'm excited for it. It has Alec Baldwin, who also was in The Aviator, Ed Harris, Matthew Broderick, Martin Sheen, Annette Bening, of course, Steve Coogan, Candice Bergen, Oliver Platt, Amy Madigan. It's a huge list of great actors in it that Warren Beatty got to come back in this film that is the first one that he's done since his huge bomb in 2001, Town and Country.
I am very much looking forward to this movie. After I saw the trailer for the first time, it's just right there with the kind of movie that I think I'm really going to like. It's up there with like La La Land, and they just have a really neat spirit about them. I've always been fascinated by Howard Hughes, but Warren Beatty, I think, pulls off a truly great looking Howard Hughes in this film. I think he's and I really liked The Aviator too, but this is the Howard Hughes I expected out of that film. It was fun to notice Thaisa Farmiga, who is. Did you mention her already?
I didn't. But yeah, Vera's sister,
21-year younger sister. Who looks just like her. It's kind of alarming. And boy, that Lily Collins, she is adorable.
Absolutely.
I remember her briefly from Mirror Mirror from 2012, but she's been in a bunch of stuff, and I did not put those things together. Mortal Instruments, City of Bones, that was one of my daughter's favorites for a while that kind of went through our house. I didn't even make a connection that she was even in it. Anyway, really fits the part. She's one of those actresses that I think just could have, maybe should have been born in that era.
She does have a little bit of that vibe, doesn't she?
Yeah.
It's
Looks like a little bit like Princess Grace. It's that that sort of the wide-eyed, sort of innocent look, I think really fits the era. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Did you say when it comes out?
I didn't. No, it looks like it's going to be a Thanksgiving film. Right now, the only release date listed is U.S. November 23rd. So check it out, Thanksgiving. Looks like it will be an interesting one.
Oh, hey, you want an immunity check on this one, Andy?
We never thought it would happen.
Nobody gets in or out of that town now. Is that clear?
The girl just died.
How do you intend to let the people know about all this?
We were asleep. Well, they dragged us right out of the house.
Are we under martial law?
Don't talk to me or anybody else unless you got a voice print check.
All hell's broke loose in town. Nobody knows what's going on.
Now look, you just can't push us around this way.
We've got to get a nuclear weapon in the air above that town.
Hey, what the hell's going on, Sheriff?
You know what I do, boy. Let's go.
I taking me no place. Oh, man, this is easy.
They started something they can't stop. The Crazies.
The Crazies, Andy, 1973. This one written and directed by George A. Romero, based on the initial script by Paul McCullough. It stars Lane Carroll, Will McMillan, Harold Wayne Jones, Lloyd Holler, Lynn Lowry, Richard Liberty, and a whole slew of people that were in about 7 movies each, and then nothing else. That was kind of it. This movie is it is a disease film. It is the story of the military trying to contain an accident, a virus that causes instant craziness in all of the neighbors in this little town in Pennsylvania, and they're trying to contain this and this disease that they created. It was created as a biological instrument that got loose, and very much plays on Romero's love of these themes. When human systems fail, humans fail humans. And I really enjoy that theme. This is one of those films that I thought I was going to like a lot, and it ended up I didn't like it a lot, but I didn't like it just a little either. It's right in the middle for me. How did it hit you?
You know, this is one of those schlocky films that I don't know. I find Romero has a certain charm with the way that he puts films together. And I just kind of like there's just a weird kind of slight bit of insanity with his films, just the way that he kind of cuts it together, the way he tells his stories. It seems like his world building is very abrupt and brief, and you just got to kind of be there and go along with it, because things just happen. And you're like, oh, okay, well, we're talking to the president now. Oh, we're back with this guy. And it just moves so fast. He doesn't really allow time to sit and think with stuff. I don't think that this is, for me, at the level of the Dead series, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead.
Not even close.
But I still liked this. And I think it's kind of a bad movie, but but it's one of those ones where, like, I feel like I could at some point end up calling this like a guilty pleasure, because I actually really kind of enjoyed the manic insanity of it.
Yeah, I actually agree with you on that. Well, first of all, my impression of this film is aided by the fact that I do have a bit of a crush on Lane Carroll. She's adorable, and just
she's just terrible.
She's just terrible, but really, I mean, I'm wired that way. What can I say? So I also thought that for a film that ends up being so schlocky, there are, more often than not, some really pleasantly human and engaging performances peppered throughout the film. Not always consistent, certainly not always delivered by one actor. There's not one actor in here that I could say just nailed the entire performance. They're all really spotty, but occasionally you'll run into sequences that feel really good, and you'll find yourself surprised that you're seeing it. And then you'll pick up the DVD and you'll say, is this really the movie I'm watching? It doesn't feel like it should be great. And for the most part, it makes good on that promise.
Yeah, it's very independent. I mean, this is definitely one of those really, really low budget films. This is Romero at his early days. I think this is his fourth film. He had not had a lot of practice. And I mean, he even acknowledges, he was still at a stage in his filmmaking where he didn't even know what crossing the line meant. Mm-hmm. And so you see people having a conversation, and as it cuts, they're both looking the same direction off screen, which makes it feel like they're not actually looking at each other when they're having a conversation. And these are things that, you go through film school and you kind of pick up, and he just didn't know any of that. And he acknowledges, is like, yeah, I didn't really get it yet. And it's stuff that he slowly started figuring out as he went along. But yeah, this is the fourth film early in his career. And he hasn't had a huge career, but I think that he's certainly picked up some stronger filmmaking methods as he has gone on. Although I think that he's always kind of been on that level of kind of the schlocky sort of stuff.
Well, let's talk about a little bit more about where this film falls in his career, because that is kind of important. He had made Night of the Living Dead in '68, and that was, it was it was a great film. It didn't open as great, but it built powerfully and ended up getting him some credibility to the point where he could make some other movies. And then there were these movies in the middle between Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead that caused him great strife.
It was the middle zone, because Creepshow, which we've talked about on the show, was about. It was 20 years after he started his filmmaking career,
yes.
And in the list of his credits, it's about halfway down the list,
right?
So, yeah, this is definitely early in his career, and he's still sorting out things. He's still trying to figure it all out. And, yeah, I think that it came at a point where, Night of the Living Dead had not become a cult film yet, and so he was still not making projects that had a lot of money. People still didn't give him a lot of credit as a filmmaker. And so it was still a struggle. It was still, he was still kind of a commercial director, kind of directing these films, trying to make a living and see what he could eke out.
Well, and by the end of the Crazies, he was $1,019,73 in debt after There's Always Vanilla, Hungry Wives, and the Crazies, a sort of set of three Romero's dead years of films between 68 and 73. And that was real trouble, to the point where the general consensus at the time was, don't call Romero, he's got nothing left. And so that's sort of where the Crazies is. And it's I would submit that it's largely why the Crazies doesn't have more critical acclaim even today than it does. It's not a great film, but there are certainly worse films that have greater acclaim.
I think this film would have continued fading into obscurity if it were not for the filmmakers who came around and did a remake of it in 2010. And of course, he was, I believe, an executive producer on that it came out. But yeah, I think that spurred on interest in this. And when that was released, this ended up getting released. And I think a lot more people ended up seeing it because of the curiosity of the Romero factor and watching this old film of his. And I had never seen it. I'd only seen the remake, which it's an interesting take on the story, because my recollection of the remake is it really focuses on the few survivors in the town who aren't infected as they try to escape the people who are infected. And you don't get any of the military except a very kind of creepy sense of that Big Brother's watching sort of sense of like drones. You kind of see these images of drones, or you're like POV of a drone overhead as it's kind of flying over, and you kind of get a sense that, they're watching them from above, kind of cordoning off this whole area. That's my recollection of that one. And I thought it was an interesting way to go about it. But it really did take the title more seriously. The Crazies, all of these people went crazy and really just started killing everybody.
Yeah.
This one, people go crazy and they're just like cuckoo bananas. They might kill you, but they also might just dance in a field with a bunch of sheep.
Well, and that's really it too. And I watched the remake today, and you're right that what they get better in the remake in 2010 is, well, first of all, they have a great cast. I mean, led by Timothy Olyphant, I have a great fondness for that guy. They have a really interesting cast. It still has that sense of sort of independence to the film, but it's actually scary. Right? This Crazies, this George Romero Crazy. I went into this movie expecting to be scared, and I don't like scary movies. I did not get scared at this movie. So I decided I'm going to, caution into the wind. I'm going to watch the 2010, and it made good on that promise. There are some really creepy things going on in that film, and it is much more brutal, and that sort of World War Z style of everybody's gone crazy, that we're going to show large crowds of crazies chasing you. That it makes good on that promise,
which I think is good. And it's interesting because I don't know if I've ever really found any of these early films of Romero's actually scary. Like, I don't find any of his zombie films that scary.
No.
They're interesting to watch, and they're gory. The effects are always really fun. There are some fun effects in this one, although he still was at a point where he was kind of, he hadn't quite partnered up with Tom Savini yet. I don't know. I think that I think there's definitely a difference, and I think it's more of just a fun escape sort of film. And this one is like an interesting look at the way that people end up acting crazy in these situations. And that's what I found more interesting, is that you have the people who are going crazy, and yes, they might burn your house down and kill you, or they might just, like I said, go dance in the field with the sheep. Or you have the government people who kind of are, their own crazy in their militaristic way and the way they are enforcing things, even though they really aren't really sure why. And then you have the people who are fighting them, who are just kind of, just belligerent people who are going to fight the military because they're trying to shut down the town and everything. And so you've kind of got all these other people acting crazy anyway. And so I thought that was actually an interesting look at the whole title of the film and the Crazies, and that's what I liked about this one, as opposed to the remake, which I did remember was fun and frightening. But this one, it does kind of look a little more at what it means to be crazy, and in a situation like this, how sane people can end up just becoming crazy, not because of the virus.
Well, yeah, and I think this film actually does a really good job of presenting. I talk about these the when human systems fail, humans fail humans. This is a test of every human system in this film is pressure tested and fails, right? First, the doctor's office, that fails, totally falls out of control. Then the fire brigade, right? Our protagonist in this film and his buddy are firemen, and they are called all hands on deck to go fight this fire. They just leave right in the middle of the fire, like they just take off.
Well, they're not even helping during the time they're there.
They're just sitting on a truck smoking.
They're leaning and drinking water.
Right.
It's like, wow, these are the laziest firefighters
exactly. They're terrible, terrible role models. And then the military, of course, they're just jackasses throughout the entire film until the very end, where they actually lose the guy who has the cure in a stupid case of mistaken identity. They just won't even listen to what he has to say. And this poor guy, this poor schmuck, this doctor, his identity is mistaken the entire way through. Like, nobody listens to him, and he's the only one who is capable of actually doing anything good in this scenario.
To be honest, I mean, pretty much everybody in the film is kind of an idiot. They're all pretty much idiots.
Truly.
It's like there's a lot of decisions that get made, and I'm like, oh, really? That's the decision you're going with?
Exactly.
But again, I mean, that's partially the way that Romero likes to tell his stories. He likes to show people making bad decisions and then how they kind of deal with the repercussions of those decisions. And I think that's interesting.
And it's funny, when you look at just the impact that this film has had on, disease and zombie films since. Have you ever watched the Strain on FX, the series?
I've read the first of the books.
Okay, this is the Guillermo del Toro and
right.
team books. I have not read any of the books. I only I was inspired by this series that I dove into the season 1, and I've got about 2 more episodes at the end of season 1. But so many of these tropes are laid out in the del Toro version of this disease spreading, that I find really satisfying. That even though I didn't really like the film, the ideas actually shine through pretty well. Let's talk a little bit about how it got written. We mentioned we talk about the Paul McCullough original script, The Mad People. What'd you find out about that?
I didn't find much about it other than I guess what Romero says is that when the producer at the company that actually bought the rights to this original script and wanted Romero to kind of come on board, he actually thought that the script was kind of took the story too long. What he really liked was about the first 10 to 20 pages, which really dealt with what we see here, kind of the incident happening, the townspeople revolting, and a little bit of that military subplot. The rest of the script focused on all the survivors, everybody's attempt to cope with what was happening. And, I think Romero said that it was very existential and heady. And so the producer said, just take this script and rework it, but focus on just that beginning part and make that the energetic kind of horror script that I'm wanting to see. And so Romero did just that. And I don't know if he actually ever talked to or even met Paul in the context of actually reworking this script. But it's an interesting way to go. I mean, it definitely does sound like McCullough's version is a little more, if you're really focusing on the aftermath and just kind of how people deal with it, I can see kind of what the producer might have thought. It's like, this is never going to sell as a movie. Let's just focus on the actual, disease and the, trying to shut it down part of the story. And I think that's interesting. I don't know. I'd be curious to see what the Mad People, the original script, looked like. But at the same time, I liked the scope of this story. I don't know if I'd want to see it continued much longer.
We mentioned that the film is just chock full of idiots, and that's sort of what is celebrated about Romero's kind of Middle America zombie infestation. But we didn't mention some of the deeper kind of hits at the military. Apart from being jackasses, they're not great people. As they steal money from others. They're clumsy. They're very much demonstrated negatively.
Right.
In the 70s, this is a response to Vietnam?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, our two, the two protagonists, the guys that we're racing around with as we follow David and Clank, along with, the people they're dragging along. I mean, these guys acknowledge that they had been in Vietnam, and they, one was a Green Beret or whatever. And so, they weren't going to put up with the way that the military was handling things, because clearly they already had that lack of trust with the military, and they didn't like the way that they kind of did things. And so I thought that was an interesting element that they added in here. And certainly it's something that I could see Romero coming up with. I don't know if it's in the original script or not, but knowing what Romero does with his stories and how he kind of would try to tie them into something to kind of give it a little more meat, whether it's race relations or people's reliance on malls and shopping or whatever it was. I think it's an interesting way to kind of do that here.
How is this representative of, even though early in his career, representative of George Romero as a director?
Something that Romero does like to put in his films is definitely having miscommunication happen. People screwing things up. Like I already said, you've got these people who just make these bad decisions. They're idiots. And then you kind of follow as they kind of deal with all the screw-ups that they've done. Things really fall apart, and they don't necessarily get fixed by the time the script is over. Same thing here, and I thought it was interesting that you don't get the disease contained by the time the script ends or the story ends. This is something where you find out, oh, hey, now we have people down in Kentucky. I mean, this story takes place in Pennsylvania, and now they've got people down in Kentucky who are showing signs of getting this disease. So clearly, it's kind of spreading on a much bigger scale now, and they pull the colonel out to go fly down there. And it's it's interesting that he tends to do that, because if you look at his zombie films, that's kind of how they are. It's it's not necessarily about ending it. It's just about escaping that one particular part of the story.
Well, I feel like we need to talk again about the remake because it was a thing that surprised me about this film, that it literally does not end it insofar as they have talked so often about what they could do to end it. They drop the bomb. They're going to, the politicos have this whole plan where they're going to say that this downed plane was actually carrying a nuclear weapon, and if they actually do end up needing to drop a bomb on the town to cleanse it, they could just say to the public, well, it was carrying a weapon and it accidentally went off and everybody died. We're real sorry.
Right.
But that never happens, and yet they do choose to go that route in the remake. And in fact, the escape is not just from the town, it's from the town blowing up.
Which I totally forgot, but yeah, that is pretty interesting. It's interesting that he ends it this way, where you do have those choices presented to you, and then we don't see it, and it just kind of goes into people making lousy decisions. I mean, here's this thing; it's already gotten out because the military has been so they've had such poor planning in the way they put this whole thing together that. When the plane crashes, they send the one guy there, and he's just like, they're not getting me any people to come and stop this thing. And through the whole film, the military is constantly complaining about the fact that they're not getting the people they need to actually prevent this from escaping. And It's in the water stream. And that's the thing that I think is so funny. It's like, it's in the water stream. Water's just going to keep running. It's not going to stop in this town. It will kind of keep going. And nobody really even acknowledges that, which is interesting.
First shot, last shot. We start with this idyllic, beautiful town. It's a lovely sort of sunset, kind of twilight evening.
Right.
And it's perfect. That's where we would want to go and picnic.
And then craziness happens.
Then it gets crazy, and the last shot is Peckham is flown out, and he gets all naked on the helicopter tarmac. And burn his clothes, and then he puts on the new clothes, and he's flown out. And our last shot is clearly pre-Steadicam on helicopters. It is a really terrible shot, trying to keep the town center frame as the credits roll. And the helicopter pulls away. This little town gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until it is a mere dot frozen in the center of the frame.
Yeah, so it's even more specific than the town. It's the actual that frame of that UV light that he's been standing in.
True.
In the field. I mean, it's just that tiny bit of light and his outfit burning next to it, just sitting there in the field as it burns away. I think this is a great example of a. I mean, even in an indie story, that you can still tell a really interesting story between the first shot and the last shot. And I like that Romero really sets it up well here. You've got, going from this tranquil, peaceful, idyllic kind of countryside sort of lifestyle to essentially you have, something dark and kind of confusing and foreboding and very eerie as you're kind of pulling away from, in a sense, the remnants of what's left.
Yeah, and the for me the movement on the final shot is demonstrative of this sense of that the town is inconsequential, right?
Yeah.
That this thing that has happened is so big, we're going to take our leadership out of your little town, which at one point meant something to us, and now it's just a target. And we all know that it's a target. We're not going to see it, but the fact that we're taking our leadership out of it means that this place that was so beautiful just 120 minutes ago is now meaningless. It is now black in the night. There is no part of it that is of any utility for us other than this UV light frame that allows us to get the people who matter out.
Yeah, it's interesting. I really like the first and last shot here. This is a good example of it working really nicely, and it's a nice pair.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Let's talk about my girlfriend, Lane Carroll.
I love that she's pregnant. She's not showing, so she's not very pregnant.
Not at all.
But then she says, "Oh, the baby is kicking."
It's the size of a sea monkey at that point. But
you're
man,
really
can
sensitive.
She feel it.
Talk about Princess and the Pea.
Yeah. Oh, totally her. Have you seen the other movies that she did? She was in only this. There's Always Vanilla and Hercules in New York. Have you seen those two?
I have not. I have not seen anything else.
That's too bad because we're going to be doing a Lane Carroll series.
Good.
All her movies.
Only 2 more movies to.
That's right. It's a short one.
I can't blame everything on her. I mean, also, I think it comes with the territory when you're in a Romero film, especially these early ones, is I don't think he was necessarily a great writer. I think that the way characters speak, it works, I guess, in a Romero sense, but it doesn't necessarily feel realistic. And I think that some of the ways that these people behave, particularly her, I'm like, man, is this woman just dumb? She just like makes some decisions that I couldn't quite get past. That being said, I mean, it really didn't bug me that much. She just seemed to fit as kind of one of the characters in a Romero film.
Oh, she totally did. She was fine. She was.
She is your girlfriend
fine.
After all.
She did great, Andy. Will McMillan as David.
Yeah,
he was there. He showed up.
I think he might be the one is he the one who's been in the most stuff that from this film?
It's quite possible. He has to his name. He's got 63 credits, and
I mean, he worked up to the end. I mean, all the way. I mean, he died in 2015 at the age of 71, and he was working up till 2012. So he stayed busy.
He only directed or wrote 2 things: The Gift and Cards of Death. But my goodness, he was in a lot of stuff. I think all of a very similar kind of class. Although this is where my rat hole went today. He was in Knots Landing.
Oh dear!
And of course, you know where that goes.
Oh yes,
it goes to the great Ted Shackelford.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah. Ted Shackelford.
What I love is that he was in The Young and the Restless in one episode.
Yeah,
but he played Jerry Gunderson. Isn't that the name of the character in Fargo?
Oh no,
Maybe I'm
kidding!
wrong.
I don't know. It does sound very familiar.
Yeah.
You know what they say about old Ted Shackelford?
What? What did they say?
Well, he's known for Knots Landing. He did 342 episodes of Knots Landing. Of course, he was Gary Ewing. He was the guy who spun off of Dallas. We've had this conversation, but he was actually he is Jeffrey Bardwell / William Bardwell / Jeff Bardwell on The Young and the Restless. 384 episodes.
Wow.
Old Ted.
There you go.
Right? That's a lot of episodes. He has nothing to do with this film that we're talking about tonight, but that's Ted Shackelford. All right.
And it was actually Jerry Lundegaard, not Jerry Gunderson, so I was incorrect.
So close.
But I mean, I enjoyed Will. He was fine. Again, he worked fine in the indie Romero vibe that this film carries. So I was okay with I was really okay with everybody. They all fit in context of what Romero is doing here in the spirit of an independent film. I would certainly watch this instead of John Carpenter's Dark Star.
You weren't a fan of Dark Star.
Was not a fan of that one.
No, you made that clear in last week's show, the short. You didn't even like the music.
No, that was pretty terrible.
Yeah.
That was terrible. But yeah, Harold Wayne Jones. Did you like him as Clank?
No, I didn't really. I mean, in terms of things, just sort of, yeah, he was fine. I didn't like him all that much because his character I found just kind of puzzling, particularly when they were in the house, or specifically when they were in the house together hiding out. I didn't get his relationship with his friend, like his best friend. He went hot and cold for no reason at all, and ended up really turning me off. Like, I thought he was supposed to be the buddy, and I know he was already coming down with the Crazies. But it just wasn't clear. And so I don't think he pulled off that transition very well. Like, he's the only one that I have something really, like, I wasn't crazy about Clank.
His craziness didn't bug me. I kind of saw his transition happen and I was okay with it. But I think that I didn't care for him that much when he was normal, like earlier on in the film. I just felt like he had just some of the lines that were like, oh, okay, that felt a little more cliche.
Yeah.
If you can say that about a film like this.
Yeah.
But yeah, he ended up in Night Riders, the 1981 Romero film about this is
this is good.
A medieval reenactment troupe finds it increasingly difficult to keep their family-like group together with pressure from local law enforcement, interest from entertainment agents, and a growing sense of delusion from their leader.
Why is this movie so great, Andy? Because it stars Ed Harris.
Ed Harris, Tom Savini.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to need to watch this one of these days.
Yes, you
I've
are.
never seen it.
Oh,
So funny.
Ed Harris in a crown and a motorcycle. It's too good.
Oh, man.
Okay, yeah. Lloyd Haller as Colonel Peckham.
I liked him. I think it's interesting. I think that Romero does like to throw some race into his stories just to kind of shake things up a little bit as far as expectations. And I thought that some of the reactions when he takes off his mask when he comes in from the local sheriff was kind of interesting. I'm like, oh, there's a little touch of that Romero in there. I kind of liked him. He had that kind of that jefe sort of vibe, and I kind of enjoyed watching him. Again, somebody who has not done a lot, only 10 credits, and this is his first.
I actually, of everybody in here, I found him the most kind of believable. Like I enjoyed him as the boss, as the colonel. He took on this film after a very very sad Broadway career. He was on Broadway 4 times between 68 and 75, 3 times as a principal and once as an understudy. None of the shows made it a full year, but 2 of them didn't last a week. 7 days, and then they closed in 68, Ouch. 69. So, what are you going to do? Then he did actually manage to sneak in Kiss of Death. You I'm sure will know Kiss of Death as one of your favorite guilty pleasures. I say that knowing nothing of that film in your esteem, but David Caruso and Nicolas Cage.
Oh yeah, I remember that movie.
Yeah.
Didn't see it, but I remember it. I remember it being there.
All I remember is the South Park when they asked, when I think what's his name, asked his little brother to do an impression of David Caruso's career, and he jumps out of a helicopter or something. Hey, do your impression of David Caruso's career. Ah!
That's funny.
It's really good. All right. How about Lynn Lowry as Kathy?
She's kind of, she did end up getting quite the cult career. Not from this. She was kind of already in the midst of her cult career from some of her early films, like I Drink Your Blood and Sugar Cookies and The Battle of Love's Return.
Oh, you would say she actually does have more credits than Will McMillan.
Yes, she's busy and still active, still very active. She has a lot of
Look
films.
At her 2017.
Yeah, it's if you just look at down the list of everything in pre-production, production, or post-production announced. I mean, it's like longer than the list of projects she's done. She is a busy, busy woman. She's one of those people. You get kind of cult status as an actress. And you end up just appearing in all sorts of things. I mean, she pops up in everything, including the remake. She was in the 2010 remake of this.
She was. She whistles on a bike. But I have to tell you, as I'm looking through her stuff, her credits, she is in the upcoming 2017 film Skysharks. And I think I can tell you based on this synopsis that this will be my trailer pick. For sure, deep in the ice of the Antarctic, a team of geologists uncover an old Nazi laboratory still intact where dark experiments had occurred. In order to conquer the world, the Nazis created modified sharks who were able to fly and whose riders are genetically mutated undead superhumans. A military task force called Dead Flesh 4, reanimated U.S. soldiers who fell in Vietnam, is put together to prevent world downfall.
I want to see that right now.
Hell yes. That's your movie, boy.
I want to see that right now. I was going to talk about one of her other ones that's coming up soon called Revenge of the Devil Bat, but it's it's nowhere near as good as yours. I like yours better.
The Dead Flesh 4, Andy.
Oh, man. Yes, certainly has created a career for herself. She's one of those people that I thought was really interesting in this film. I don't know how much I liked her character, but I liked that, it was clear that she was kind of going crazy from the beginning. And I will say, and maybe this is something else I like about this film, is that Romero doesn't necessarily hold back. You have a really kind of a frightening rape scene. I guess you could call it rape. They're both crazy. Her father, Artie, kind of decides that, hey, this girl next to me is looking pretty good, who happens to be his daughter. And they both kind of start going at it. And it's a little disturbing, I should say, a lot disturbing. But it's like that's kind of a really brazen thing to put into a film. And, I really appreciate that Romero does kind of throw some risky things into his storytelling.
I do too. So let's talk about Richard Liberty.
I think the funniest thing about him is the fact that he is still, like, apparently controlling his daughter's sex life. Like she's a little 12-year-old girl, even though she's old enough to be the emergency appendectomist in town. Like, wow. Wait a minute. How old is she? How old do you have to be an appendectomist?
Yeah, I don't know. It was a very strange relationship, as you've already said. Very strange.
Yes.
So that was weird, but also I think indicates like that was if you're going to be in a movie called The Crazies, that relationship ultimately was really made good on the title.
Yes, they were pretty much both crazy from the beginning. Well, they were sitting next to the crazy guy on the bus.
That's right.
So, but Richard Liberty, he also ended up in Day of the Dead. He was, I think, the crazy army guy who was, I think he was the mad scientist sort of guy in that film, if memory serves. I may be wrong, but so he's worked with Romero a couple times, and he was in Just Cause with Sean Connery. Come on.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Well, if it makes you feel any better, Lynn Lowry plays a nun in Skysharks.
Oh, there you go.
So
I do feel better.
That kind of, completes the circle.
Yes, it does.
Richard France as Dr. Watts.
He's also in Dawn of the Dead, another person who has worked with Romero a few times. Yeah, he worked with him a couple times, but I think he was also in There's Always Vanilla. He is, isn't he also a playwright or something? There's something about him that I thought was kind of interesting. Yeah, he's an American playwright, author, and film and drama critic. He's recognized. He is a recognized authority on the stage work of American filmmaker Orson Welles, and actually in the interesting documentary about Orson Welles and his time trying to get Citizen Kane made, he kind of steps in as the person giving all the information on Orson Welles as the expert. He has a really interesting look, and there's something about him that I don't know.
Looks like he kind of carries himself like Orson Welles.
He carries himself in a really interesting way, and it almost kind of, I don't know, it throws me off, but maybe it's because he's wearing a turtleneck, and I'm not quite sure, but he is peculiar, and I guess he actually is an uncredited zombie also in Night of the Living Dead.
Good for him. Yeah, his misunderstandings. The first one that was so frustrating for me in the script is when he is, we go from the politicos and they say, get somebody from the Trixie team to that town. Get them there now. Dr. Watts is going to recommend somebody. I don't care who it is. Get anybody. And that ends up being the kiss of death for poor Dr. Watts, because anybody turns out to be him, and he screams the entire time, don't take me there, I'm not useful there, I need to be in my lab, please take me to my lab, and they never listen, and it's infuriating. It ends up being one of the most horrifying moments of the movie, and it's all about politics. It's awful. It is painful in actually a good way. The way this, even though it was stupid, it actually was really satisfying. And then he ends up, the military just never listens to him all the way to the very end, where he gets thrown in with the crazies in the gym as they take over the place, and he's knocked off the stairs to his death.
It's brutal.
It is brutal. It's just really sad when he's carrying the cure.
And it's frustrating because he's, again, kind of an idiot. And this woman who, they've kind of been googly-eyed over each other, working over the Trixie blood samples. Edith Bell, she clearly gets that he's discovered something, and he just won't say it. She's like, "What is it? What are you looking at?" And he just won't tell her, and he leaves and he dies.
I know.
It's just
so wrong.
Oh man. There's Romero at work.
We've got a couple. I mean, the cast is not small as listed, but there were there other people that really stuck out to you that you wanted to talk about?
Well, Edith Bell, I just, those paint on eyebrows that she had, that just
she was a work of art.
That was a look.
Yeah.
That definitely was a look. Harry Spillman as Major Ryder. There's something about him that I enjoyed. I think that he's one of those actors who just had a sense of presence that I enjoyed watching. And Will Disney as Dr. Brookmeyer, he just seemed like he was almost just a spoof doctor, and he really made me laugh every time he was on screen because he just, they cast a lot of locals from where they were filming out in the small rural Pennsylvania towns, and I don't know if some of these people might have been those. I know a lot of the people in the suits were just a lot of people ended up just being town citizens. And so some of these people might have been, but I enjoyed the sense of them because they all felt so real. The only other two people I wanted to talk about were Rick Catazone, who was the guard they steal the van from. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right, but he was the guy who did all of the animation bits in Creepshow. So
the interstitial stuff.
Right, exactly.
Oh, awesome.
And then George Romero himself makes an appearance. He's the president of the United States. And it is the weirdest thing because when they cut to the TV, when they're talking to the president, all you see is like the top of the back of his head.
Why do they do that? It's terrible.
I'm like, that's the dumbest thing in the world. And I guess it was just because it was Romero and he thought it'd be clever or something. But
well, history has shown it is not clever.
It was not. No.
All right, let's talk about getting this thing made.
Yeah, S. Williams Hinsman is the guy who shot this thing, and I think that he had been working with Romero for a while. He was actually the first zombie in the cemetery in the Night of the Living Dead, and in this film he actually pops up a couple times as bit parts. And his two kids are the two kids in the very beginning of the film. But I think that Romero said something like, well, he knew how to use a light meter better than I did, so I just had him shoot it, which I think says a lot for this indie spirit that these guys had of just trying to make something and figuring out what roles you were going to be. But this was the first time Romero didn't actually also have to shoot his own film, so I think it allowed him a little more freedom in figuring out the storytelling.
Hair and makeup, Bonnie Priori, Doris Dodds, Gloria Natali as consultant. They did the makeup and hair, and I don't think it was all that crazy.
No, I think if anything, it was just kind of the blood effects that they did, and I don't know. Sometimes that falls into the hair and makeup department. Sometimes it's just the effects. And let's
just say this out loud: the blood is terrible.
The blood is terrible, but it's weird. I swear. What is it about Romero and just his blood that ends up looking really bad?
I have a theory.
It always is. It's always kind of like almost a day glow blood or something.
Yeah. I think and tell me if you don't think that this could possibly be a thing, that it is uncolor tested on film, that it probably looked more like blood when they were actually shooting it.
That's entirely possible. But you would think that he would have done it enough times in his films that they would have figured that out.
Okay, you have a fair point. It is every film is like that, right?
Definitely the same in the Dawn and Day of the Dead films. It
feels so much like it's the same blood they would have used in the black and white if they were shooting on black and white.
But even then, I think they were actually using like chocolate because it actually had
because it needed to be black.
Yeah, right.
Well, it was really frustrating. So there's no crazy, and the blood is terrible.
Yeah, it was pretty terrible. Which but again, that kind of, I don't know why it's, I don't know why I feel like I'm giving Romero so many, outs with his film, but I find I end up enjoying it more. And maybe it's because I really enjoy Dawn of the Dead. This film kind of just had a sense of that. And so I kind of found it easy to, say, oh, the blood, it's Romero blood. It's okay. Oh, and it's funny talking about just the people, and then looking at the locations, filming this in rural Pennsylvania. There was a huge hubbub about the final scene when you have the colonel running out into the field and stripping down naked and so that he could burn all of the clothes that he was wearing while there, getting into something new and hopping on the helicopter to fly out. It was quite a to-do because the townsfolk in rural Pennsylvania in early 70s really did not want a naked black man in one of their fields. And they actually had to go before like a town committee and talk about it, and they had to show them the footage to assure them it was okay. And it's nuts. It's like one of these weird things where people were really freaked out about the fact that, oh, there's a naked black man running around in the fields.
I wish you'd stop saying naked black man. Sounds like a name of a terrible band.
That's right.
But do you see how far it's naked black
man?
See, Andy, do you see how far we've come as a country?
Oh yes.
You could be a naked black man. You could be a naked Asian man. You could be a naked white man in a field in Pennsylvania, and you don't have to go before city council at all to do it. That is how far we've come.
Oh my. Yes, indeed.
I note only the party in the gym.
Oh yes.
Which is the, this is where they're putting all of the crazies, right? They're using it as this holding area for the crazies. And I can't, every time they cut to it, they have this high, wide angle of everybody in the gym, and it looks so much like a party.
Right.
It looks like a party. It looks like prom with just too many people there.
Yeah, they're having a good time.
Not scary.
This is like the pie fight scene in Doctor Strangelove.
That's exactly right.
This is why you cut that scene. But, it speaks to Romero and his filmmaking style. He said, he'd rather have 100 lousy shots than one great one because he sees all the footage that he collects while making a film as clay that he can use to kind of mold his story. So even if the shot in his mind...
may be the problem.
Well, right, exactly. Even if it's a lousy shot, at least he can kind of find a way to kind of, use a little bit of it to tell his story. And so, yes, it is kind of a party in the gym, but they're all crazy.
They were crazy. That's the truth.
What do you think of that helicopter crash?
It was not good. Why? This was Tony Pantanella and Regis Servinsky on effects.
Yeah, it kind of just looks like it's coming in for a landing.
Yeah.
And I think the only reason that it sells as a helicopter crash is, one, we have Clank shooting at it, and all of a sudden you hear the sound effects of the helicopter kind of whirring, and it stops, and you just see it. It looks like it's just coming in for a landing. It's nice and slow as it drifts down to the other side of the hill, and then a huge explosion. I'm like, oh, okay. I guess that's how they dealt with the helicopter crash in the low-budget filmmaking of the 70s.
Well, it's just like pretty much anytime you're dealing with helicopters in the 70s. I mean, we've been through this before with terrible use of helicopters with, our man in the Omega Man.
Oh, yes.
Terrible helicopter work in that thing.
Absolutely terrible. Yeah. Absolutely.
Anything else on this that you want to talk about?
The editing, I do like. I've kind of already mentioned it, but Romero has a nice, quick pace with his editing. I think that's just something that he got from his world in commercials, and also just the necessity of having to tell these stories quickly and on the cheap.
Well, and also because, as you've already described, all he has are hundreds of terrible shots.
Right. But I like that he actually says he views himself as I can't remember, like a filmmaking cubist or something like that, where he actually likes to get a lot of shots of the same thing happening so that you can look at it from different angles and kind of tell that story. And I mean, I think there are some scenes that kinetically work really well. When our good Dr. Watts gets knocked down the stairs backward, I really enjoyed the way that played out. It happens a number of times where things happen, and just the storytelling, the way that it's edited together, actually works really well. So I think that it's pretty nice the way that he does his gets his editor to work, which is him.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah. And it's I think it's a testament to indie filmmaking that there's not really a composer on the film. It's all just needle drop, which is just, canned music that they basically buy and just put where it works. And so you have, kind of the militaristic drum beats. You have some other tracks that even Romero now says, oh, I can't believe I put that track in. It's horrible. It's so funny. And then, of course, the producers spent a ton of money getting Carol Bayer Sager and Melissa Manchester to write the song Heaven Help Us that played over the end credits. Beverly Bremers sung it. And it's it's really, it feels like a late 60s, early 70s song, and not one that was ever going to climb up the charts.
No, it did not. And it's hard to even find anymore. I've been searching for it throughout the afternoon.
Awesome.
Beverly Bremmers does have quite a few tracks on that you can get around Spotify and Apple Music, but not this one.
But not Heaven Help Us.
We've already talked about this as a remake. It was remade in 2010, starring Timothy Olyphant and Rhoda Mitchell. It was, for me, again, it was a better film. I had more fun with it. But it's made some other, it's been remade a couple other times and fashions.
Yeah, there was a graphic novel that came out in 2013. And in 1991, actually, there was a Danish director, Kim Fupz Aakeson. I don't know if I'm saying that right.
I think
apologies, Kim.
Great.
Thank you. Released a novel, De Gale, or The Crazies, about a sudden and nationwide onset of dementia and two adolescent boys who attempt to cope with the situation. More just kind of an inspiration sort of thing, I think. But yeah, it's interesting that this is a story that does draw people in, and clearly people enjoy seeing it and hearing about it.
We've already said that this was at a tough time for George Romero, but how did it actually do when it was released?
This film didn't do well at the box office. Actually, this is one of those movies that it kind of came out, and unfortunately, again, an independent production company that was also doing the distribution did not have a lot to do the marketing with it. And so they released it market by market, just kind of playing it in different markets around the country, trying it. They would release it under different titles, just trying to find different ways to get this thing out there. And it never really took off. It just, for some reason, it just never clicked. Romero just really felt that the distribution was really poor, and I think it obviously bothered him a little bit, because I think that it's a film that he enjoyed. But we've talked about a number of 1973 films, and this by far has the lowest budget of them. The Exorcist was a $12 million budget. The Sting was $5.5 million. This was $275,000.
Wow.
So in context of what those guys were spending on their films, he actually accomplished quite a bit for a very small amount of money. In today's dollars, that's about $1.5 million, just under $1.5 million. So definitely a very low budget film. This film ended up making domestically only about just under $150,000. So again, didn't do very well. Adjusted, that's about $750,000. So unfortunately, it ended up having an adjusted profit per finished minute of a negative 6.7 thousand.
Well, at least we have the Dead movies.
At least we have those.
I think
and Bruiser.
Yeah. I feel like I know where this is going to go, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think it's time for us to rank it.
Let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel. You're going to look for the Crazies. Make sure to choose the 1973 version, not the 2010 version. You don't want to get Flickchart confused. And let's see how it does. Filmo wa filmo. The Crazies versus
Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Oh, Andy, there it is.
There's our Oh Brother block right back in there.
Consider it blocked.
Oh Brother. I will say though, I did like the Crazies, so I don't expect this to be down at the bottom.
No, not at the bottom, but it's not going to be at the top.
It's not at the top. I wasn't expecting it to pass our Oh Brother block. I am curious, though, to see where this one ends. This is interesting. The Crazies or The Host?
Oh, I would pick The Host.
I would actually pick The Crazies.
Oh, Andy.
I would. I know.
No, you wouldn't.
I would.
You're going to regret that in the morning. This is you have Flickchart goggles.
I'm going to pick The Crazies, but I'm going to give you The Host.
Oh,
I'm not going to take.
Okay, you're not even going to do. Okay, good. Well, that's good.
The Crazies or Say Anything. I will say anything.
I'm also say anything.
The Crazies or Marty.
Oh, The Crazies.
I'm going to say The Crazies. The Crazies or We're No Angels. Oh, totally We're No Angels.
Totally We're No Angels. Yeah.
The Crazies or Manhunt. I had a lot of issues. I enjoyed Manhunt, but I'm going to say the Crazies.
I think I would watch the Crazies first. Desert Island. Yeah. I would do the Crazies first.
The Crazies or the Dead Zone?
Oh, I think I would go with the Dead Zone. And we also had some problems with that. We haven't had to rank that in a long time.
We did have some issues with the Dead Zone. I'm a little torn on that one. I don't know. I think I'll side with you and say the Dead Zone, but I think I'm wrong on that one.
Well, I'm actually really split. So if you were to push me one way or the other, I would go.
Nah, it's all right. It's okay. The Crazies or the Blob? I would actually say the Crazies.
I'd watch the Crazies first. I see those movies as very similar, though.
Well, there we are, 233. It's lower than I was expecting, but it actually kind of fits in when I look at what's around it. I'm like, no, it actually is kind of in the right spot.
Yeah.
And it's only, let's see, it's at 233. The Andromeda Strain is 236, so it's only just a little bit up from that.
That's right. And the Andromeda Strain was really boring.
Yes, it was. I would totally watch the Crazies over the Andromeda.
Absolutely. All right. Well, what does that do for your Letterboxd ranking?
I gave this one a 3.
Solid 3.
A solid 3. Yeah, it's there's a lot of bad stuff, but I still find it really enjoyable to watch.
Yeah, I'm also a solid 3. That'll be easy math.
That is easy. Yes, it is.
Where do we go from here?
We're going to be having quite a jump in time and jumping all the way up to the 90s, and we're going to be looking at Outbreak. This is the period of the crazy Ebola just fervor everybody was in.
Can I recognize this might end up being a guilty pleasure for me. I recognize that, but I am actually looking forward to rewatching this one more than any other film in our series. Does that make me a bad person?
No, that's pretty funny.
I really, because I know what I'm going to get with Serenity. I got that, and Children of Men, I didn't like very much. So I'm curious to talk to you about that. I want to be wrong about that because I know that there are so many people I trust who like that movie. But Outbreak is the one I've been looking forward to the most.
Excellent. Well, I am too. It'll be a fun one to revisit.
All right. Well, until then, Andy, I got to go to bed.
All right. Well, I have got to go build a wall of bricks around my wife so this army of guys in white hazmat suits can't find her.
Amazon giveth, Andy.
As Amazon always doeth.
I've got a 4-star. Can you believe it?
I know. I can. I mean, yes, I can.
You're supposed to say no because I always go straight to the bottom. Man,
I thought you meant can I believe that somebody would give a 4-star to this film? That's what I thought you meant.
Oh, okay. No, that makes much more sense. Well, in fact, in Durham. Watched the Blu-ray in 2010. This was just before the sequel came out of The Crazies. He says, wonderful, underrated gem from George Romero. Though George Romero may be best known for his zombie-filled post-apocalyptic Dead classics, The Crazies is one of those lesser-seen films of his, along with Martin and his team-up with Dario Argento, Two Evil Eyes, that should definitely be seen today and still remains effective as well. Loaded with an apocalyptic atmosphere, plenty of suspense, and enough political commentary that it even remains relevant today, The Crazies may not offer anything you haven't already seen in 28 Days Later / 28 Days / Weeks Later, or even the upcoming remake of The Crazies, but keep in mind that back in 1973, what Romero presented here was something near revolutionary. Blue Underground continues to release some wonderful Blu-rays, and things haven't changed with The Crazies, which deserves to be in your collection if you're a horror fan in the least. I would have to say, though, speaking in terms of flick charting, I would definitely watch 28 Days / Weeks Later over The Crazies.
I would watch Days first, and then The Crazies,
and then Weeks.
Yes. Except for the first 10 minutes.
Of 28 Weeks Later?
Yeah, it's a brilliant open.
You're a hard man to please.
I am.
What's yours?
Well, I got a 1 star by Alex Rupert, who said bottom of the barrel, George Romero. The Crazies is a pretty bad movie. Considering George Romero directed it, it's even worse. This movie is not a Night of the Living Dead clone minus zombies. You would think that Romero, who also wrote the screenplay, would integrate a much more interesting biochemical virus as the plot device, like a mutated strain of rabies that goes airborne, for instance. 5 minutes into this flick, you will notice that the infected look no different than the non, only they act nuts. It's here that your thoughts of this being an entertaining flick will be laid to rest. Not much is explained about the man-made virus, except that it has infected the water supply of a small hick town. The area is quarantined and invaded by armed military decked out in paper-thin biohazard suits that lack airtight seals. They corral everyone into enclosed infected zones, and any peaceful attempt to do so disintegrates after shots are fired. The soundtrack plays 2 numbers on a constant loop, a military drum roll that's stolen from MASH, and some cheesy elevator music that could be lifted from 70s John Holmes porn. The cast is throwaway. There's not one character in the entire film that stands out, not even in a so bad it's funny way. They all suck. Each side, hack and civilian alike, adds another layer to how awesomely boring this movie is. The Crazies grinds to a premature halt before the credits roll, as if the director got too fed up to finish this mess and just decided to call it quits. The 2010 remake is 100 times better than the original, while only being decent in the lineup of today's genre movies with a similar theme. Best to avoid at all costs.
Serious. At all costs.
At all costs. You know, I will say, I did think it was kind of funny that the credits rolled when they did at the end, because it did feel like we were still kind of finishing it, and then all of a sudden the credits rolled while we watched the whole last scene play out.
Yeah, I know. Yep, you're done. You're done. You're done.
Yeah, that was funny.
Oh, thanks, Amazon.
It is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
Oh, I know. You're telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you, and allow us to keep having these great conversations.
In Season 6, our Disease Films series had adaptations like The Omega Man, based on I Am Legend, The Andromeda Strain, Children of Men, and Blindness.
I Am Legend is so much better than The Omega Man.
What about the Will Smith version?
Don't get me started.
For our This Is Real Life Jack series, we talked Black Hawk Down and Seabiscuit, some great true stories based on fantastic books.
And we had more listeners' choices like The Fly, The Emigrants, and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
You just did a series on The Fly on the Sitting in the Dark podcast. Did you read the original material?
Wasn't watching every Fly movie enough?
Our Big Betty Davis series featured adaptations like The Little Foxes, Now Voyager, All About Eve, and Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Are you calling Betty Davis big?
Only in personality and force.
She is a force to be reckoned with.
We talked about the entire The Godfather trilogy, of course. Iconic page to screen, even if it is just the one Mario Puzo book. I wonder if Coppola will ever make The Sicilian.
We also had some Zhang Yimou adaptations with Judo and Raise the Red Lantern. Absolutely gorgeous movies.
And don't forget the Hughes Brothers series with From Hell, based on the graphic novel. Brilliant material.
Kelly Reichardt gave us Wendy and Lucy and Certain Women, adapted from short stories.
Plus more Hayao Miyazaki as we tackled Howl's Moving Castle.
Find all these books and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every purchase supports the show.
Get the full list of adapted films that we've covered at thenextreel.com/originals and start your next read today.